Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and we have the beautiful, the brave, the delicious, the smelling nice Kate Bromley. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Welcome to episode 240 of Walnut Wednesday. This is crazy. So, Walnut, if you have not met Kate before, I will get her to introduce herself in a moment. But Kate is my best friend, and we've had Kate on the podcast every 10-ish episodes since Walnut Wednesday sort of started. So Kate was on episode 10, starting as a little running joke like, see you in 10 episodes. And it kind of just stuck and morphed and turned into this little thing. So these episodes, Walnut, are a little bit like you're a fly on the wall to our chats, because how we chat on the podcast is usually how we chat offline, but obviously with more names and details and tears. Kate, take it away if you want to introduce yourself to the Walnuts who have not met you before.
Sure, that's so true though. Like literally we go back through our chats. Like, what was the thing we talked about that we want to talk about again? But yeah, so I am Lara's long old friend. And usually I've been dialing in from different places a lot recently, but I am in London currently. I'm kind of nomadic these days. But from New Zealand, that's where I met Lara at uni. And I love coming in on the podcast and us just checking in and having our chats and sharing about things that we've mused about. And we usually go on crazy tangents, and hopefully people like that.
I think so. I think so. Either way, it's free therapy for us. So there you go, Walnut. If you want some free therapy, hopefully you pick up some bits and bobs. But this week, Walnut, Kate and I have kind of noticed that we've both been going through similar-ish situations in our own little worlds, where the recovering people pleaserdom has been coming up a lot. Would you say that's kind of the theme that we've both been having, Kate, at the moment?
Yeah, I think it took a minute for us to hone in on that being the root of it. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Walnut, it's kind of about in different contexts. Kate and I have both sort of been dealing with, processing with people, friends, family relationships that it's kind of like you can lead a horse to water, but there's been just a lot of self-reflection on like, why me? And how do I fix this? And what can I do about this? And we've kind of just been floating over the past like month or so between each other, like trying to just unpick and investigate what the actual hell is going on, and not really getting to a point other than it is what it is. I don't really know how to take off or what question to ask, Kate, but do you want to give a little summary about your reflection in the first instance, and we'll work backwards from that?
Yeah, I think, well, you already said something that I was like, oh my gosh, I love an analogy. And when you said that whole, you can lead a horse to water. And I think instead of it being the classic, it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't blame yourself for why they don't drink. That kind of thing is like, it's like, I think my conclusion with some friendships and relationships that I've had recently that have sort of popped back up for me is I've realized my go-to is one of two things: just massive frustration, and then usually my fallback is, how do I fix it? What have I done wrong? How can I make it better? Because I can control me, right? But I can't make that person or the other person uh come to the party and also reflect and also, own some stuff, or also want to grow. And I think that's the conclusion I come to, is that sometimes, as much as you want to understand why they won't be like make the effort maybe, or why they can't let go of a chip on the shoulder they might have about you, or what that even is. Sometimes you're not going to get the answer because maybe you're just not even the problem. Maybe you just reflect their own problems back to them.
Mm. And we had a big discussion about that, like mirroring what other people don't like or just invoking something that triggers other people just by being how we are. And Walnut, I was saying to Kate in a teary voice note, like, why me? Like, why am I in this situation? I had like a couple of different circumstances where if I felt so like targeted or like I felt like this is so unfair on me because what have I actually done? And I can't self-reflect enough to just know what the hell I could have done better or changed or anything. And yeah, lo and behold, we came to the conclusion that like it's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the thing, like, is that when you like go out, I think it can become very like hyper focused on that specific situation that you're trying to say. But then when you take that big picture of like, well, hang on, how do I feel around my other friends? Do I feel relaxed? Do I feel safe? Do I feel judged? Do I feel on edge? And usually, with like, luckily for us, we've cultivated some amazing friendships. And I know they're amazing and I know that they're mutual, they go both ways. And I never feel like I'm taking too much from that person. And I never feel like they're taking too much from me. So I have evidence that that exists and exists in a really healthy, full of communication, full of joy kind of way. So when you're butting your head up against another situation and you're going, well, I can make it work with all these other people, so I must be able to make it work. You're forgetting the other side of the equation, which is maybe they don't have it in them.
Mm,
And I think there is a certain uh, thing that people can be kind of, whether they realize or not, sometimes threatened by. Like I've had a situation where I feel like I put in a lot of effort to try and make plans and make time for a friend, and they're not great at, yeah, and they're not great at showing up, or they'll flake on plans, or I'll have to chase them about it, and then it's like, oh, let's make it next week. And I'm like, well, that's probably never going to happen, right? And I talked about it once and I said to them, like, you know, friendship isn't always when it's convenient. Like there was an occasion where I got asked to like organize a party for that friend. And it came at a terrible time. I was so busy. But it was a really cool occasion. I thought it was great. I was asked and trusted to do this. And I was like, I'll make it happen. And I reminded them of that. And they were like, yeah, but you're better than me. And I was like, fuck, that's probably the most honest thing that they could have said, which was like, I can't even try to be on your level. So I'm not going to try. And it
mm,
was like, huh, I should take that as face value. That's probably the most honest answer I'd ever get. And yet, why would I continue to be disappointed when they keep showing me who they are? And so the decision has to be then like, well, I don't have to be hurt. I don't have to be like, oh, that's the worst person in the world. But maybe I just go, I need to match that effort level. And if that means the friendship peters out, then it's not much of a friendship. And if it means that you have a pretty easygoing, amicable, acquaintancy friendship, then no one's putting in more than they're getting out, and at least it's equal. But it's really hard to sort of reconcile that when you are, you know, a people pleaser, or you really do enjoy the time you have with that person, or they're part of a group that you would love them to be on the same level as everyone else in the group, so it's not this weird, you know, entity that's not quite matching up. But we can't always get that, and sometimes those people just aren't going to rise to the occasion. In fact, some of them are just threatened by that, and they actually want to make you the problem because that's easier for them because they can't own their stuff.
yeah.
Such a big rant for me, but
No.
that's that thing of being like, it's great, we want to be better, but let's save it for the people that are also showing up their best selves for us too, and that their best selves are worthy.
Yeah, I think what's coming up for me as well is the key difference there with the people. the different lots of people is that safety thing and that like closeness thing. Because I'm reflecting now, just the example you brought up. I have a friend, I see her once a year, and I used to be like the we should catch up for a drink and effort to organize stuff. Love her to death till the day I die. But I she's always honestly and openly been like, yeah, I if I'm not with you every day or whatever, I won't reach out, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. And we'll do the odd like message saying like, hey, top three things what you're going through right now, welfare check, and it will
Yeah.
end, and then we'll have our annual once a year thing. Um, and I don't get mad at her about that because I feel safe. I feel I can be
Yeah.
myself. I feel I can say anything. I feel like I can go a whole year without seeing her and she'll know exactly who I am and we'll both just have this mutual feeling. The other version of this is I get so cross with the people who don't make me feel safe in the situations that you've kind of
Yeah.
already through there where I don't want to spend so much energy and effort on that. Do you know what I mean? Like the person who I see annually probably deserves more of that effort than what I'm spending tiresomely screeching over why is this like this over a situation I'm almost like it's not even forced to be in, but it's a circumstance that I can't just poo-poo and be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
because they're around all the time.
And I don't know about you, but my frustration often comes from I'll realize, let's say, I think both of us have had similar situations where we're in, say, a group dynamic and
Yeah.
that person's there. And I've only come to this recently, but I've realized because I'm a little on edge, like I feel like maybe they're going to judge me or I've got some resentment or I don't feel quite safe, is that I'll end up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy and like the next day have awful like anxiety or anxiety, like I'll drink too much to try and calm myself down, which makes me just blah more, or I overcompensate and end up being kind of combative first, which makes me look like
Yeah.
the person with the problem. And a lot of other people are then observing that, and then I'm conscious of that. I'm like, I'm being my worst self, and I'm giving them, whether or not that's what they want or what they're even thinking, it's irrelevant. I'm
Yeah.
not being my best self. And without them maybe even realizing it, it's purely because they're present.
Yeah.
And that I soak up so much of this perception of the one person who I don't understand because they don't communicate with me enough, or they don't give me enough kind of what's that word, like reassurance, or I just don't have that comfortableness that I have with most other friends, that it sticks out so prominently for me that that's where my focus goes. So it's sort of like you could have, comments on your photo and you could have 1,000 good comments, but that one negative one will spin you out. And then
Mm,
you might go crazy and respond. And then people are like, why are you so crazy? It's like, I don't know. Why am I letting that make me so crazy? And I just think what's really hard to reconcile with that is, even if I'm like, it's them, it's not me, it is part of who I am to be bothered by that. So,
yeah.
like, what can I do with that, which requires nothing from them? Because I can't actually expect anything from them because otherwise I wouldn't feel this way, right? If I could
Mm.
have the conversation. So it's like, how do I protect myself? And I think that's what we've been wrestling with, which is like, how do we find peace in these scenarios?
Yeah, finding the peace. And it also made me realize how much of my 20s or my prime youthful years, you know how I've always said like pre-Walnut Wednesday, it's not that I woke up one day, but one day I just noticed how much I just really didn't like myself. But it was because I was always in these like air bunny quotes unsafe situations where I was
Yeah.
behaving in response to how people were making me feel. I felt like I had to be loud. I felt like I had to be the peacock. I felt like I had to dance on the tables. I felt like I had to like live up to this person that the other people perceived me to be. And it was so just not me. And so now being in a place of like, um, I'm actually okay. I actually love myself. I actually think I'm pretty cool. Um, to have these feelings come up again is sort of like, huh? Like it's kind of
I
like
know.
hard to juggle. So
I think we're harder on ourselves on it now because we feel like we should be past it.
yeah, it's because it's gone
And
on for
it's
so long. But I mean, I've always said noticing is the best first step, right? It's good to notice these things as they're coming up so we can like pick them apart. But I think where you and I are specifically still in those phases of like investigating it a little bit more. Like we have come to like little conclusions about being recovering people pleasers and things, but we haven't quite sought the answer. It might come in these podcast episodes because I feel like we always do come full circle, but we're still in the like, that board game operation, just trying to like pull these bits out without trying to get zapped.
I think, yeah, I think also like it's reminiscent of how we've talked about, my decision making process and the freaking agony I go through.
Yeah.
And that a lot of that agony would be prolonged because I'd be fighting it and frustrated by it. And that now I can accept that I'll always need time and be very like, I don't know what to do for a minute, but that I know what I've started focusing on is the end result, which is, but I've always gotten to a point where I know what the decision is, and then I'm happy with that, and I'm always glad that I waited. So is there's going to be a bit of agony still, a bit of that figuring it out, like we say, noticing it. But I think what I'm trying to let go of, which is similar to the choice and decision making thing, is fighting that, fighting what's happening. So I think my for the parallel for a choice, I'm like, just come on, you need to just make the choice rather than just sitting with it and being like, it's going to take more time, just chill. And I've gotten to that point. I think with this situation, my frustration is, all right, well, what can I do? So let's communicate with that person. Let's put it all out there. Let's own all my stuff and anything that could potentially they could be bothered with. Let me lay it out there and be like, I hear it. I can be better. And then that's fighting the reality, which is, well, do I really need them to feel better about me? Or do I just need to feel better? And that is oh, Dev, that's the kind of thing that, like, I think we're starting to get to, which is, well, no, now what I need to work out is how do I navigate the situation regardless of them? Like
Yeah.
they'll be there. So like for me, I'm kind of like, I need to be more present and self-regulate more in these scenarios and not be like drink to chill out or um feel like, oh, get ready for any kind of mean comments so that I'm ready with like a quick response, like have my guard up, have my armor on, and instead be like, I'm here for a good time and there's a lot of other people here, and maybe I just focus on those people, and that person comes along, pleasant, whatever, but I don't need to worry. If I just decide not to worry, then I can still be my best self. Easier said than done, but you know what I mean? Like I feel like our knee jerk is to rather fix it with the person rather than just let it go and sort of be like, not perform, not go, what do they need from me, and just go, what do I need for myself in this situation.
I love that, but I also immediately have anxiety because I'm imagining a scenario because I feel like in one of my situations, because I have multiple going at the same time, of course.
Mm,
In one of mine, I'm still at the part where my role in this is I have a walnutting that I need to fulfill, which is mentally preparing a comeback on the spot because I haven't completed that part of what I actually need to do for myself yet,
yeah,
which is my little way of making it known and things like that. And Walnut, I've talked to you on the podcast about this already a little bit. Um, so I still feel like I'll be in a situation where I will have that edge because I'll be trying to listen out for for the response, and I won't be able to just sit back and enjoy because I'm anticipating something that I'm going to have to rebut.
Deal with.
Not really a
Yeah.
argument or anything, but just where I have to say something, and it's something that I'm not comfortable doing. Um,
Yeah.
but play it
Yeah.
cool at the same time. So it's like this whole thing.
I know you're right. And I think we've talked about this before. And I think I have not like I'm ahead in the journey or anything, but I have probably practiced that element a lot
Yeah.
more. I probably started that 5 or 6 years ago, just being able to sort of not necessarily have like a weapon to draw, but like you say, sort of be able to deflect something that is I've not been able to like respond to. That's usually made me retreat or made me feel very hurt. And it's good to be able to know how to respond to those things in a measured way, but in a way that sort of puts it back on that person. So
Mm.
my problem was, and to be really honest, is because I've been doing that for so long, I anticipated a little bit too quick. I read into things a little bit too fast, and I've gotten a little bit, if I've got my guard up and my back up about these things, I can be aggressive or passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And so that was an overcorrection on my side. I think it is certainly something though that like being able to be assertive in those situations, which is what you're working toward, is really important, and definitely still part of it. And um I'm similar. You need to like bring it up and I need to bring it down. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
love it because we're always sort of like paralleling between really similar things, but we always like come to this really wonderful like middle ground between us. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and that assertiveness is something that I have struggled with for a long time. And we've talked about it on multiple episodes where I've always said, like, oh, I wish I could say that, and there have been circumstances where I've been able to practice it. But then yeah, that they still come in like and show up at these funny little times of like personal growth that um really just come up and you're wondering why now? Why me?
Yeah. And I mean, being able to be assertive in those moments is really valuable. And I think I have practiced my work. You have to be very, I think, assertive too. And we've talked a bit about how I, well, I don't know if we have, but sometimes I feel like, again, I've overcompensated, feeling like I get, often being the only woman in the room or feeling like maybe people don't value my expertise or my views as much, and that sometimes again I'm like, well, my choice is either say nothing or shout, and I've gone from saying nothing all the time to shouting all the time, and now I'm definitely circling to that journey of, right, how do I find the middle ground? And really, this is what's hard, and this is where I've been burnt before, but what I've found is vulnerability works in that thing. Like I've had that, and sometimes like someone, I remember being at the post office and someone was a bit rude to me, and I went, I'm really sorry. I just don't quite know what you need from me. Can you please show me? And I'm using that vulnerability. And I'm not doing the like dumb girl thing, be nice. Like genuinely, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I could either get mad or I could just be like, oh, and go off and try and figure it out. But I went middle ground, vulnerability. And honestly, they're, oh, yeah, okay. And they show me. And then it's like, you're reminding them you're a human, not a big, scary human that they need to fear and respond to, and not someone that you could just like ignore and kick in the corner, but just like a human that's got value and deserves respect. And it's a hard line to toe because I remind myself when I'm in a bad mood to treat people with respect and to not, be annoyed if delivery person can't find my flat. I don't know what their day's like. You know what I mean? Like it goes both ways. But I think in social situations and with friendships and things, when you feel on edge around someone, it's very hard to be vulnerable because you already feel like they might just kick you when you're down.
Yeah, you feel
You know what I
naked.
mean?
You feel very,
Mm,
you already feel a bit vulnerable in some ways,
yeah,
you already feel
yeah,
like you've got something less to bring to the
yeah.
table. Hmm.
But being that assertive vulnerability, like in that way of, someone made we been told things like this. Sometimes someone makes kind of like a weird sexist joke and going, sorry, I don't really get that. Can you explain it to me? It's going like I'm not gonna go either way. I'm not gonna ignore it, laugh it off, and hate myself for it. And I'm not gonna kick off and then maybe look like I've overreacted. I'm gonna go middle ground and be like, let's put this back on that person in a really light, reasonable way. And look, as I'm saying that, it's so frustrating we even have to think this way, that it's
Mm,
such a balancing act. But I think that's where people who like us, that people pleaser, like recovering people pleasers, what I've realized is I'm happier with myself when I do that. So
yeah.
it actually is like, how do I please myself? Which is, I don't want to be a pushover, and I also don't want to be a scary, over the top version of myself that I'm not happy with. I don't want to be an angry, screaming, you know, difficult woman. Quotation marks. Sometimes anger is good, girls. Like, let's remember that.
Yeah.
But when I come away from a scenario and I'm like, I said what I need to say, and I said it really reasonably, and I held my own, and I, at the end of the day, no matter what the response is, I'm proud of how I handled myself. That's
Mm,
all you can ask for, right?
yeah. And that's a walnutting. And then you feel good because you pleased yourself. I saw a TikTok the other day that it was like, oh, so you're a people pleaser? How many people are you pleasing?
Yes.
Who are you actually
Same.
pleasing?
And I was like,
And I was like,
exactly.
oh.
How many people are pleased with you then? And I was like,
Yeah,
oh
that's
my God.
it.
But again, it's like probably lots of people, but those aren't the people I'm trying to please.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with us? So yeah, I think it's just that being someone who's thoughtful and cares about other people's feelings and is considerate. These are all amazing things. But it's the superpower, right? It's like, let's use it for good and not evil. And unfortunately, I think it's wasted on some people.
Yeah.
And so it's not about going, oh, well, then fuck you, or I hate that person, they're evil, or I can never spend any time around them. But it's just going like, I need to just start putting in as much as I'm getting out. And if that is nothing, then there's nothing, no conversation needed. Or if what they're putting out is something that I think is hurtful, maybe I just reflect that back calmly, hey, that kind of hurt my feelings. And what can someone say to that? Like what let's see, what they say. A lot of people go around the world being quite rude and actually having no idea because the rest of the world's too polite to tell them.
Mm.
I mean, you see it all the time, and I just think maybe we're selling them short. Maybe they have room for growth, but everyone's just not bothered with them.
Yeah,
You
because it's too
know, it,
hard.
it
Because it's too much of a spiral and too much
because we're
of
focusing too much on ourselves as well.
yeah.
Like you can offer someone you can say, you can tell someone how you want to be treated, right? You could say that in a really like calm, reasonable, healthy, vulnerable way. This is how I expect to be treated. And then you've got the thing of if they can't do it, then you stop wasting your time with that person. And if they can and they just didn't know, you've given them an opportunity to grow and to show you and to actually make. I've certainly had experience in my life with that where I felt like I don't want confrontation, this isn't going to go well, I've been passive aggressive, and the person's been like, hey, talk to me, what's going on? And I've just thought, I don't want to have this conversation, it's not going to go well. Like history's told me it's not going to go well, I'm going to be the problem. And that's not how it's gone because I haven't known that person that well, and they've gone, I didn't realize that. Like that's fair, like I will take that into consideration, I don't want you to feel that way. And I've been like, oh my God, she's now a really good friend of mine. You know what I mean? Like we were
Yeah.
friends, but now we're friends.
Yeah.
Like it's such nonsense when people say, oh, when it's right it's easy. It's like it's easy most of the time, sure, but like when it's right, it should be okay for it also not to be easy. It shouldn't be the end of the world when it's not easy.
I'm being reminded of a friendship that broke up, and I remember being like just so sad and very like um like I was like ordering delivery pizza. I was watching Pretty Little Liars. I was just like, it was like an actual breakup with a boyfriend, like
Yeah.
it hurt, really, really hurt. And they actually ended up coming back and being like, we were such good friends and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no. And
Mm,
like I was actually like, I'm just thinking back now, I was the one who was like, yeah, we were.
yeah.
R.I.P. Piss out, peace out. Like, or piss off kind of works too. Um,
Yeah.
oh, none of that was nasty, but yeah, I've also been in situations where I have, yeah, just that was a really great example that just came up for me because I had forgotten about that part where it was actually me that chose not to carry it on because it did feel quite it was hard, but also I wasn't pleasing myself throughout the friendship as well. Like I was always doing the reactive behaviors of
Yeah.
of the perception of that person and what they wanted me to be and all the things. And there's no hatred or anything now, but there's certainly no contact or communications going
Yeah. And
forward.
probably no regrets, right? Either. I don't know if this was a similar time, but I had a similar thing happen kind of towards the end of uni. And I think it's a really formative time in your life, this sort of early 20s.
Yeah.
Where I mean that's where we like forged our friendship. And I think I mean I tried to talk it out with this person and I think they still wanted to be my friend, but I could tell I wasn't getting anywhere with the conversation. And I knew it was either accept how they are, which has upset me, or move on. And I went with move on as well. I was pretty good at doing that when I was younger as well, probably because I didn't have as many years in the bank with certain people as well.
Mm.
Um, and I think I like the fact that like when there has been time, a lot of time with that person and ups and downs and things, I'm gonna put a good amount of effort into trying to make things better because sometimes we're just going through changes or hard times in life and that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I think it was important that I knew, maybe for you as well. So I just thought, I don't like how I feel around that person. I'm not sure I trust that the juice is worth the squeeze anymore.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. For me, I mean, I moved countries several times, and you and I are in constant contact no matter where I am, which is amazing. But I've got friends in New Zealand that I'm not in constant contact with. But when I'm back, they make the effort to see me. I make the effort to see them. They're, it's like we catch up, no time's passed, it's comfortable. And I had an expectation when I first left that like all my friends are going to stay in touch with me and make time for calls and be up to date on my life and I'll be up to date on theirs. And that's not been the case. But I actually still found a way to like be happy, completely content in the friendships with them. And it gave me room to probably make, if I was always on calls with my people back in New Zealand, I probably wouldn't have spent the time to cultivate friendships in London that
Mm.
are great. So sometimes it just makes room for other things where you're like, well, I see that person, like you say, once a year, and all we're completely present with each other then. And then other people, like sometimes it's time and space, sometimes it's going, I'm giving them so much power over my mood and my
Behavior.
feelings of, yeah, my behavior, even my self-worth, like my hangover anxiety from it all. I'm giving them all that power. They're not even asking for it. They
Yeah.
probably don't even know. And it's like, so maybe just taking the time and space, and then they go, huh, I miss that person. I wonder why. And who knows? Or you're just better off and there's just that is never missed anyway. I've certainly noticed I've had to get better at noticing people's growth because even if they're not on, maybe I have high expectations. I do have to own that. I have the high expectations of myself, and therefore I have high expectations of other people because I feel like I should get that level back. And I'm quite intense. And not all my friendships can be that intense. So sometimes it's about managing expectations as well.
Mm.
And if they don't meet them and they really don't meet them, it's like you're not worth my time then.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds really savage, but it's really not. It's just like a, oh, the sky is blue. Yeah, it's just like a, oh yeah, it is what it is. You're
Yeah.
not at that level, and that's okay. But I think that's where what I'm getting from all of these examples in this really great discussion is like for me, and I think we've talked about this on voice note as well, Kate, is less is more. It's like stop. Well, you've already said it on here a couple of times, like just giving what you get. And that's okay. That amount is less than what we expect of ourselves, what we expect of others, all of the little spiral things that we had going on in our own little recovering people pleaser brain heads. That less is more. And full stop. Full stop.
Mm,
Like
mm,
that is okay. Less is more and
yeah.
that is okay. Um, I think one of the things that is really hard for me, and that's just because I am an overthinker, is in a situation where it is just a total shame that someone is the way they are. And I see how it upsets not only me or, people close to me, it upsets the whole dynamic of a room because one person just cannot see what they are like. And it is
Mm,
frustrating that they just think that that is the way the world is, and
mm,
everyone bends to it
mm,
because it's easier. And I feel like that's my little strange sense of like of justice in the world where I'm like, this is so unfair. Like we've got a whole group of people like, you know, changing platforms to be able to communicate with somebody because they don't have that particular social media or something like that. And it's just like for one person that can really
yeah.
like shift an entire room. Um, I think that mind boggles me just accepting I can't full stop that quite yet. I can't say, and that's okay just yet because
Mm,
so much bigger, if that kind of makes sense.
I don't think you have to as well. I think you and I do have quite a strong um core about what's just. Fair is very important to us and just and sort of, like that, that we've talked about, like, the work example of, oh, well, that's just how Sharon is. And it's like, well, why should we just put up with how Sharon is and everyone's cool? No one else could talk like that and get away with it. Why are we just going? And I think that's something that irks us. And therefore, I think whether we do it consciously, obviously, subtly, subconsciously, we stand up against that. And so we do put ourselves in the firing line because if everyone else bows and we stay standing, even if it's just like, I'm not making a big deal, I'm just not bowing down, that person's going to go, that's a problem. And they don't even necessarily know it. But there's a sensory thing. As much as I think we can sense the tension, is they can sense whether it's annoyance or nonconformity or probably judgment from our side to a degree as well. And they probably know that you can't outwardly say, well, that's unfair. They probably know deep down that, like, it would just be great if you would bow down too, because I'd really prefer that to have to look at myself. And so what do? They try to make you bow, or they try to make you look like the problem for not bowing. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And so I think, I don't think I'm ever going to really give up that part of me. And I don't think I should. I like that I do stand up for what I believe in. And I do like that just because everyone does something that maybe isn't the healthiest, but maybe it's the path of least resistance, I will pick and choose if and when I decide to do that. I
mm,
won't do it for anyone but myself. But there is no full stop on that because it does put us in the firing line. And it does hold, for example, is if you're the person that always, I don't know, shows up or whatever, and you're kind of showing that person up. And so if they don't want to change, then they really don't want to see the mirror you're holding up to them either. They
yeah.
really want that ignorance is bliss. And so if they can't meet you on your level, if they can't be better, then you are the villain. And that's why the why me comes up, I think, for us is like people go, I don't like how you make me see myself because that's not something I'm willing to work on. Therefore, you need to be the problem for me. Otherwise, I can't exist. Like, how could they handle that? If they don't want to change, but you're proving that they need to, that those two things can't coexist for those people. That's a threat to their identity, to their peace. So that's why I think sometimes it's hard because that person, sometimes those people are like, I need to find their fault, or I need to be mean to them or cut them out or cut them down, because it's their insecurity that's at play.
Mm. It's good to realize and recognize that, isn't it? But I think um what's coming up for me is just that the walnut journey itself can just be very, very tiresome and very lonely. And I don't think there's any way of getting around the why me. And while it's great to like what you've just said there, Kate, is so powerful. I'm literally going to make a clip out of it and listen to it on repeat every day. But it's just it's just hard. And maybe there isn't a a cure for the why me or why it's so hard, but just realizing that does bring me a little bit of um just you pointing that out brings me a bit of assurance, I think. And it's just that the more that we practice and the more that we notice, the more we back ourselves and the more we feel
Mm,
comfortable with backing ourselves and being who we are and shining our bright little walnut lights all over the world. Um, but it does
yeah,
really comes with that really heavy frustration, loneliness at the same time, as well as like, I'm shining so bright and I'm so beautiful and brave.
yeah,
We have that complete polarity, duality, this ongoing and parallel with each other.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's where that process comes into play, which is the more we accept that these things aren't things we can fight against, in the sense of like allowing ourselves to feel frustrated or to feel lonely or to feel singled out or to feel hard done by,
Mm.
rightly so, right? Is what we want to be like. How do we not feel like that? And I think the point is actually going, how do we live with that?
Mm. When I was at the travel agency, they were very actually my current job is full of acronyms as well, but there was one CIA, which is what can you
Hmm.
control, what can you influence, and what do you need to accept? And
Mm,
that little A at the end, A or
yeah.
three letters, it's the hard one, and that's probably the toughest one, isn't it? Because that's releasing all power of
Control. Yeah.
yeah, all control, all
Yeah.
influence, all anything. It's just
Yeah.
it is what it is.
And that's the thing. And like I think that's why being able to speak with people who feel similarly, and so many people listening probably are like, hopefully this puts into words things that people sometimes can't quite find the words for, see tangibly,
Mm,
is that they're not alone, they're not unusual, or they are but beautifully unusual, and that you know again, I use the freaking superhero analogy because like they also the song, it's not easy for being Superman, and like Spider-Man's constantly losing his girlfriend because he's got to go off and fight crime, and that's hard on other relationship things. And it's that thing of being like, who do we want to be? Can we even choose not to be this? And I do think that like having sort of a moral compass, and not to say other people don't, but like being someone maybe more vocal and doing the brave thing and the walnuttings that other people think but maybe don't speak. Not everyone can do that, and that is a bit of a burden, but could we be any other way? I don't actually think I could. So if I choose to accept that, then I know I'm going to rub some people the wrong way, and some people aren't going to meet me on my level, and I'm going to really want to bring them up there with me. But it's their choice. Like you can't make anyone else walnut, right? You can just help, and hopefully they'll do it. But there's a lot of frustration on the way of that, and there's a lot of things that just aren't fair, and it's hard when it's in your inner circle and it's people close to you. I think that's when the disappointment's really hard to accept.
Oh God, I love this episode. I don't know if it's because
Mm,
it's just like so relevant to me right now, or if it's just so walnutty. I just like, oh, just want to rip my Udi off right now. I just feel so I actually feel very empowered as frustrated and difficult of all the challenges I have ahead with this particular scenario, but scenarios. But I this was a really awesome chat, Kate.
mm.
Um I think there are a lot of really wonderful walnutty little tidbits in this conversation we've just had. Is there anything before we wrap up that you you feel like you haven't mentioned or that you would like to say to a walnut listening that's maybe in the same boat?
Um, no, I don't know. I guess it's just like reflect. I think the biggest thing is like, which for me, I found in this conversation is if you are struggling as a people pleaser, just remind yourself is, are you pleased with yourself? Literally, do you think you're being the best version of yourself? Because anyone else not happy with that version of you that you think is really good and worthy and trying to do the right thing, then you can let that go. That shows you all you need to see.
Mm, yeah, I love that. That's so delicious and beautiful. And walnut, so are you. So if you're in this like feeling of a similar situation, please feel welcome to join the walnut tree and have more conversations. I've just done a little cull of people, so that it's just like a small, tight-knit group of walnuts who are all invested in you and ready to listen and share with each other. So please feel free to use that space if you ever need to like talk about this particular thing or any other walnutting that you kind of have, or if you just want to brag about yourself as well. Because all of these things, as hard as they might be, they're also still worth celebrating as well, which we don't do a lot of the time. Um, and Kate, thank you very much for this chat and for all the side voice notes that we've had about the with the specifics. But in relation to recovering people pleaserdom and leading peanuts to the walnutting, but them not actually doing the walnutting work, um, what does being a walnut mean to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I was like, I guess I really like the idea of, being a walnut means are you pleased with yourself and how you navigate in the world? I think I've said something to that effect before, but I think, also being a walnut is is knowing that it's not selfish if someone is in your life and you've been giving 80%, they've been given 20%. It's okay to match that 20, not out of like pettiness, not out of vindictiveness, but it's okay to just go, maybe their 20 is the 20 I'm getting from them is their 100,
Mm,
and that's the most they can give me, and I'm going to be a walnut and I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to give the same back with absolute like no issue, no resentment, and I've got so much more to give to other places in my life. So being a walnut is like, please be pleased with yourself and put your energy where you get it back from.
mm, mm. I could just lick that right up right now. That's delicious. Thank you so much. I don't have any wrapping up commentary. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I feel like dopamine going all through my brain. Like I feel really, really good after this conversation. So thank you so much. Walnut, thank you for being here, for listening. Obviously, if you have any questions or commentary or anything regarding this topic, I would certainly love to hear from you. And Kate, I know that you probably would be very intrigued in that conversation as well. So please feel welcome to bring that into the Walnut Tree or message me and I can bring it up with Kate or message Kate, all the things. Just thank you for your time and for being here. I love you so much, Walnut. And Kate, again, episode 240. Oh my fucking God. Thank you for being a long time repeat guest. And yeah, like I said, my butt's really on fire. I just have this really strange sense of self at the moment just from this conversation. So I love ya. And I love these chats and just really appreciate your time on Walnut Wednesday this week as well.
I love you too. And I feel like we always get to something really important in these chats. So, yeah, I'm really grateful to have it the time and the space as well.
Yeah. All right. On that, have a happy, happy Walnut Wednesday, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.